Greetings, parents, guardians, and students. It's so good to see you. I'm Mr. Auslander.
And I'm Mr. Hatcher. How are you all this evening?
We are so excited about the fifth grade Explorer project. It's become a tradition here at Allisonville. And we just wanted to make sure, since this is such a big project, and it's really the first big project of fifth grade, we wanted to make sure that parents understood the expectations, and that way you can really support your child so that your child can achieve success on this large project. And it's Mr. Hatcher is going to be telling us, but this is not a project you can wait till the last minute on.
Not at all.
No, you have to do, if you do a little bit at a time, it's not going to be too bad. And in fact, your child will really enjoy it because it's all about creativity and showing what you've learned, and kids really tend to enjoy it. And so let's get started. So the Explorer project, we're studying about explorers and their impact on the world, and it's now time for your child in the next. Have your kids selected an explorer yet?
They haven't selected explorer yet, but you and I have comprised the list right here, parents. This is coming home for my class. Should be coming home tonight, and I think as well as Mr. Auslander. I want you to look over these different explorers from all over the world, and Mr. Auslander will share if your student has a particular explorer that's not on this list. Go ahead, Mr. Auslander.
Yeah, if there's an explorer that is not on the list, if they can convince us by showing us all the research that's available and what they've learned, we could be convinced. We could be convinced. But these are definitely ones that tie into our standards for fifth grade social studies. Yeah. So tonight might not be a bad idea to have them kind of do a little bit of just preliminary, looking around to see which ones are interesting to them. Each class can only have one explorer so like there can only be one Christopher Columbus, one Marco Polo, so they might not get their first choice, but that's okay. So each child's going to pick their own explorer that they're going to study. And the Explorer project, the actual living museum, it's not something you want to miss. We're going to include a link to one from previous years. It's fantastic.
It's phenomenal. I agree. It's one of these projects where if you can put in for your work schedule. That's Mr. Pomeranke. He's doing his job. Put in on your work schedule. The actual date for parents is going to be Friday, November 22nd from 1:30 to 2:30. That same time frame we had for the cardboard challenge. But the project is actually going to be due on Wednesday, November 20th. So your student is going to present in front of their classmates in their costume, and they will present their items, and we'll talk about that soon. But they're going to present, and then Friday is basically the grand finale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's just some of the basics. Now, Mr. Hatcher is going to talk to you about what are some of the requirements of this project.
So one of the big requirements of the project is the artifact component. Your student will need to have 4 to 6 artifacts that relate to the explorer. What we suggest is your students have a container. You can do a shoe box, an old Nike or Reebok shoe box, but make sure they decorate it and make sure the artifacts relate to their explorer. So if you are Christopher Columbus, we know that Christopher Columbus and the Europeans brought horses over to the New World. So a miniature horse, so if your student makes one, have that in there and that the student can talk about it. A compass, a map, but allow them to actually elaborate and discuss what this explorer used with these different items. But let them be creative. One of the best things you can use in the project, and we laugh about this, cardboard, aluminum foil, and easy household items. No one should be going out, because the costume is part of it, and buying an elaborate costume. Use what you have in the home.
In fact, Mr. Hatcher and I are on the same page. It's way easier just to go to Amazon and press a button. Now you have a costume, right? It's an easy button. We like creativity if possible. So that's kind of what we value. Mr. Hatcher mentioned maps and things. Of course, they have to be handmade. Yes. And we know your child's a fifth grader, so we don't expect it to be precision. Everything's right. Exactly right on the map, but it should be pretty good. And they're, like he said, the child's going to use the maps and the artifacts as talking points. To say, I went from Spain. We traveled across the Atlantic Ocean. So the maps will be great talking points rather. So 4 to 6 artifacts, like it says on the project sheet. And of those 4 to 6, it talks about the ones that you have that are non-negotiables, like a map of the explorer with the route that the explorer took. And if the explorer took more than one trip, you would maybe have the key with different colors to show. These are really great skills. A picture of your explorer,
Yes.
hand drawn, or if your child's feeling really creative, they could make a paper mache or whatever they want to do. Let's have fun with it. And a picture or model representing the mode of transportation. Same thing. We don't want printed off of Google. That's zero effort. We want some creativity.
And Mr. Auslander mentioned earlier in the video, this is not a last-minute project, parents. It can become very stressful for parents, teachers, and the student if it's last minute. So we literally have 18 days before the grand finale. So work on it a little bit of time. We will work on this project at school, but we also require that you are working at home with your student on this project. But this is a student-led project. This is not, excuse me, that was my phone. This is not where you're doing it for them. And we can tell the difference as parents and as educators. So allow them to lead.
Yes, yes. So not only are they making these artifacts, the most important thing is their presentation.
Yes.
They are standing up in front of their peers on Wednesday and Thursday, and on Friday in front of the community, and they are pretending that they are an explorer brought back alive in this living museum. And so the presentation is them pretending to be the explorer, and they're explaining where they went, why did they go there, how did they get there, who sent them, and what was their impact. That's the most important thing. What was their impact? In the presentation, don't spend a whole lot of time on where they were born, what they did as kids. That's not really important. We want to know where they went, why they went there, what was their motivation, were they looking for gold, for spices, what were they looking for, who sent them, how, what was their route, and most importantly, what was their impact. Impacts can be positive, they can also be negative. A lot of times the explorers' impacts are negative, but they did change the world, and that's what's really important. So that content is really important, and you can find those key questions on the back. Identify where did I explore, why did I explore, who did I explore for, what was my impact. Those are the big questions to ask. And also it says presentation 32 points. That's on the back. These are where we're looking for. And now fifth graders, we understand, and adults too. Public speaking
is not for everyone.
It's terrifying for people. But if they can overcome their fears, or at least feel a little bit more comfortable as fifth graders, they are going to be so much better off for it. So we understand it's not something that's easy for everybody, but it's really an important skill. And we're looking for eye contact, loud and clear voices, confidence, using the talking points. They'll be fine. They'll be fine. But we understand it can be terrifying. But they'll be fine.
And parents, the awesome thing about fifth grade that's different from previous grades, students are learning about the history of the United States of America. So these explorers are building the foundation, because your students just talked about Native Americans. We're going on our field trip on Friday. They understand Native Americans and the indigenous. Now they're understanding the explorers, and then this will lead us to the American Revolution and the founding fathers. But if they don't understand the significance of these explorers, they won't understand why the United States of America was founded in the 13 original colonies. So it really builds on your students' knowledge. It builds on them understanding why our government's set up the way it is. This is great things that we get to cover in fifth grade. So we are touching on standards, and it's an awesome project.
Absolutely. One other piece on the rubric that's super important.
Yes.
And actually, Mr. Hatch and I just discussed, we're going to make it not worth 10 points, but actually 20 points, because it's so important. 20 points, that's a big chunk of the grade. That'll be 1/4 of the
1/4, yes.
Which is 20 points is going to be the research process. So your child is going to be keeping track of their notes on Google Docs or another Google tool, and we're looking for them citing their sources, using a book source. Hopefully, we have plenty of great book sources here in the Media Center. Some online sources are fine, but we want to make sure that they're reputable, and we want to see students putting their notes in their own words, not just copying and pasting.
Yes,
we can tell.
Yes, we can tell. And parents, it's a quick resource, but as in college and in high school, Wikipedia is not a credible source. And please have them put it in their own words. Do not have students copy it verbatim, word for word, off the internet, because we know if a student is using a word as euphoric or a student is using as a word like eclectic, we know that's not their words. So please encourage your students and look over their shoulder and say, put this in your own words.
And they're going to submit their research right online. They can submit it to us on Canvas because it's Google Docs. They can just send us the link and we'll be able to check in on their progress. And so it'll be worth 80 points, not 70.
Yes.
And the rubric is here. Everything is right, except it's not 70, it's 80 because we're doubling the research component because it's so important. Okay, so now it's November 4th, right?
Today is November 4th, correct.
So the kids have basically 16 days.
Yes.
So would you say, Mr. Hatchford, this week is really a big research week?
I would agree. This is a research. Students find out what Explorer really interests them. I'd say maybe they pick their top 3 because, like Mr. Auslander said previously, there's only one particular Explorer for each class. Then the following week.
Well, so let's talk. But with research, another thing that sometimes my kids forget to do, if your Explorer is in the textbook, that should be your number one source. Go to the textbook first. Do that first before you look and search everywhere else. Go to the textbook first. Now, if your Explorer is not in the textbook, that's a little trickier, but there's a lot of information out there. Okay, so the first week is all about it, research. Then the week after, next week, you're going to still probably do some research, but that's where you're starting to work on your artifacts.
Right.
That's when you're starting to think about your speech, really focusing on the impact. Impact is so important. So week 1 this week is really about figuring out your Explorer, doing a lot of research, gathering research. The second week, continue with the research, but then start working on your artifacts, start working on your presentation. What are you going to say? And then the week after that, pretty much,
you're preparing, practicing in front of the mirror, getting ready. And parents, this is for my class, and Mr. Auslander, if I'm speaking, just cut me off. Speaking and listening grade, reading grade, writing grade, and a social studies grade.
Big project.
4 grades right there. And what I love about this project, if your student takes the time and masters the research skills, when exhibition arrives, your student will say, I remember the Explorer project. This prepared me for my exhibition project. And more details for that to come soon.
Bam. So thank you so much for watching this video. In my class, we have the kids do a homework assignment and say, who did you watch it with? And the parent's signature saying they watched it with the child. Maybe even having the parents say what questions they have for us.
And I will add that. Parents, if you send me a Class Dojo note with that you've watched it with your child.
Or you can even send home a form.
Or a signature.
Yeah.
I'll add it as a grade. Okay. Or bump up an area where your student might need help, a little extra credit. I don't offer extra credit.
Ooh, nice. Thanks for watching this. 13 minutes. We know it's a long video, but it's so worthwhile. Hopefully this is helpful. It's going to be a great project. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.